Welcome back to another episode of Dad's Toy Garage, and today our focus is going to be getting this 1973 bumper to bolt onto this car. And if you know anything about the Celicas, you know that the 73 bumper had a safety bumper behind it, so there are no bumper brackets. So let's get to work on that. These are the two rear bumpers I have. I have two of them. I got kind of fortunate getting the two cars. And the one on the top is a 1972. The bottom's a 1973, and as you can see, the 72 has brackets and the 73 does not, and it also has holders for license plate lights. The problem with this bumper on the 72 is this bracket is really bent, and I haven't been able to get it straight with the tools I have. And the other thing, when you stick it on the car, it sits off really far because that bracket is bent. It should be nice and tight like this. And I am noticing too that it's hooked here. I think that's the reason. For this bumper being bent over here on the mount. The other thing, when I lift it forward, none of the bolts line up, so I'm wondering if I can just build a 73 non-safety style bumper. So let's give it a shot. And I also got to weld up all these holes, which isn't a big deal. Now, patterning off of the 72 brackets, what I'm going to keep in my right now planning is this portion and this portion. I've got the paper cardboard template. Now the next problem is not really a problem, just the next obstacle to overcome. That's the difference in bolt width. So if I would just straight pattern off of the original 72, the problem is I would run into the bolt holes not lining up, which I could re-drill on the 73 Celica, but here to here, this distance is too close to the bracing, and I would actually cut into bracing more than I'd like. So I'm going to stretch the middle out a little bit, about that much. And then the other thing, I want to bring the bumper a little tighter to the car, and this is a little higher off than I like. I'd like to bring it in, so you can see where I want to start the folds, at that distance there. So now I'm going to transfer these to a piece of steel and we'll bend it up for a test run. So this is the paper template. I've pulled it off of the bumper now, so that's what I'm going to transfer over, and then I'll put crease lines where to crease it, and we'll do our test run that way. Alright, this is the test run piece out of 18 gauge. I'm going to call this test run a success. It's very thin steel. I got to get thicker steel like this yet. Just didn't have any in the shop, but it actually worked good. Before I mount up the bumper brackets and get those fit, I need to do a little bit of maintenance on this bumper. A couple dents we gotta see if we can get them in there. There you go. A couple dents we gotta hammer and dolly out. I gotta hammer these flat. So if you get the right line on it, see, you can kind of see it's got a bit of a bow, a little bit of dents here, but the bumper is actually not twisted or anything. So that's good. But I want to get these fixed before I put the brackets in there. It's just a little easier to work with at that point. What I'm going to do now is drill out each one of the holes where the bumperettes and bumper bolts mounted, and that will ensure that I'm not welding to any chrome, and it'll be one size bigger than what it was. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is grind a little bit around each spot I want to weld. That way it ensures I got no chrome in that area there. Okay, now that's done, we're going to get the piece of copper that I have, clamp it to the back side just like we did the front bumper to convert it to a previous model year bumper, and I'm going to clamp it down, weld it, and it should leave a fairly smooth spot. I'll just get you a close-up look here. So sort of here, like where all the spots I'm going to weld. Alright, so how I'm going to do this, I got my piece of copper. I'm going to stick it on the back side of the slot. We're going to clamp it down, and then we're going to weld it up. Alright, we got our welds done. Let's take a closer look at that, and then we'll grind them up. So the bumper bracket is made out of 10 gauge steel, or this one is 10 gauge from what I understand. So that's what I ordered here, and I've cut this one to shape, and so now we're going to build this side here, and this is our practice piece out of 18 gauge. So we're going to get that bent up to match. Here's the original bracket with the bolts in the back. And here's my new one that I've made for the new bumper. Welded some, welded some nuts in the back. This is the mount for the passenger side or the right hand side of the car. Well, this is the first time I've had this bumper held on with bolts to this car. First time I've had a Celica actually that has a rear bumper that's able to be mounted. And we just have it on the one side right now, like this side's not mounted yet over here, but this will give you an idea. Let's get this gap where it needs to be. It's kind of the gap I'm going to be after here. I guess that gap on top is just how it has to be unless we modify that too. So I got both brackets done now on this bumper to mount it. That is going to be the next step to mount it up. Well, the bumper is now bolted on the mounts that I made for it, and the holes are welded shut. So I got to build the license plate light brackets yet, and this is done. The bumper needs a slight alignment yet. It's a little bit low on that side, but overall this is pretty awesome. I'm pretty happy with it. And again, this is a 1973 bumper, most likely the one that came off of the car. So you got the holes filled up there, and it was the straightest one I had, and that's why I used it. And I really like the idea that now I have the original factory style brackets in there. They're the ones that I made, and so that's pretty exciting that that all worked out so well. I did some more playing with this bumper, and this gap that was so wide here, I've got it to a point where I'm happy with it. I'll explain how I did that in a second. And I got this gap in here the way I like it. I'm talking about this one right here between the bumper and the rear lights and center panel. And this side is also pretty good. I think this side quarter panels, if I remember correctly, it was actually damaged. I had to hammer and dolly it here. That's why this gap is slightly bigger than the other side. But it worked very well already. I got it nice and tight like I was hoping that I would be able to do. Both sides like that. So I'm super happy with that. And basically what I did was inside here, I just ovaled the top of these holes out so I can slide the bumper up taller. And this side I had to cut the bumper bracket, the one that I welded onto the bumper, on this side of the bolt, and just bend it in a little bit because it was actually, I didn't get a chance to video it, it was actually pulling this out over here. So that fixed that problem. Now I'd like to weld on the license plate lights. I got the license plate light brackets welded onto this bumper now. This is the final fitment of this bumper. I had to tack a little bit on both sides here. This stuck out too far, so I bent it in with the rubber mallet, and that's the end result there. That is something I'm very happy about, how well this bumper is fitting. We'll look at the gap here. Talking about this gap along here, and we'll get on the other side here. And this is kind of the only spot I'm having a slight issue with. There's not much I can do about it. This quarter panel's been in an accident damage, and I had to hammer and dolly it straight. So that's the best we can do, because in terms of where the light sits, there's only one spot because all the holes are a direct bolt in. That matches this side here. So they're the same. This is what I'm working on now. I need a license plate bracket. The car didn't have any, and neither did my parts car. So I grabbed a license plate off the wall. It's the same size as our current plates. I'll use it for test measurement. As you can see, it's 1976, so it's pretty close to the year of the car. But what I want to do, I've done there'll be a line here with a fold that'll go away from the plate, and that'll give it strength. And then I got the 4 holes. I think what I'm going to do for this install is take one of the nuts from here, weld it to the car, and then I can bolt this piece on with washers. And that's what I took this template for. So it should help me to get straight. These are all the original holes from the Celica. So I can just drill them out a little bigger, weld the nut to the car. And so what that does is it allows me to keep this perfectly aligned and it won't be slightly offset one side to the other when it's done. It shouldn't be. Picked up some license plate screws and then a matching nut that I'm going to weld on to the back side of this piece. At least that's the plan right now. So as we go, things might slightly change, but we'll start with this. Here's the start of the metal part of building the license plate bracket. This is the middle insert. Got to put some folds in there and drill some holes, and we're going to add drain holes along the bottom. And here is the part where the plate will sit on. That gives you perspective on the size then. This is what I got so far on the license plate bracket. A little bit of shape to it. So basically that bolts to the car. This will be welded onto here. It's got a little bit of a slope so that when it sits on the car it sits straight. These holes are drilled out already. I gotta drill these to the right size. Got my drain holes on the bottom here. We'll flip it over. So in the bottom is the drain holes. It is finished, and I'm very happy with how it's turned out. And on the car over here, we'll get down and look what I did here. Basically all I've done is welded 3 nuts to the car there. The license plate also has a kind of floating profile once it sits on the car. So I'll get that mounted up and give you guys a look at that. It's the license plate bracket mounted up. You can see I've used the 3 bolts there. And I did include the drain holes in the bottom here. And I got kind of it's got that floating profile. That's what I was after. So it's got a bit of about an inch or half an inch kind of off. And the slope, it comes out more this way if it's sitting flat, but now it sits completely level on the car. So that works. Now we're going to throw a plate on there. So the license plate is on and mounted with the bracket. And I wanted a little bit to come off of a little bit of a gap there. I thought that would look better. So that's that piece there. Thanks for stopping by on another episode of Dad's Toy Garage. I had a lot of fun actually getting this project done. We got our license plate bracket fabricated. It's kind of neat to see that worked out. We got our bumper brackets and bolt holes done. and it's mounted and fitted where it needs to be. And you probably noticed I got flat lights on my 1973. That was something I did a little bit earlier in this build. Probably actually one of the first things I tackled. I took them off the race car that we're building and put them on here. And actually they're wired up as well. But thanks for joining this episode, and we will talk to you next time.